I'm Amber, and my parents are my parents' home. 2 years have passed since I relinquished control of my own business. I currently concentrate on investing as my primary business activity, and everything is going well, so I'm not having any financial issues. Some may be concerned that I'm not married yet as I get closer to my 30s, but I have my own goals, and I'm content to be able to support my parents. I'm not obsessed with marriage, and since I'm financially secure, I don't feel pressured to tie the knot. Although there are differing viewpoints on the validity of my beliefs, I am now leading a comfortable life. This weekend, how about we all take a trip? I recommend it. I think it would be nice to have a spa. That sounds fantastic. Dad and I were recently talking about celebrating our 30th anniversary somewhere. That's ideal, then, anticipating it. Our parents took good care of us, and I have an elder sister who is 3 years older than me. My sister went to a private institution, but I didn't since I had my own goals. We want to return the favor by helping our parents as much as we can because they always put us before themselves and gave us a lot of money. Our parents are content living with me, and it's easier to arrange trips or meals out when we live in the same home. Mom said it would be great if your sister could join us on the spa trip as well. Indeed, it is accurate. However, I don't know what she's doing because I haven't heard from her recently. I hope our schedules can work out. Is that correct? That is concerning. Even if she is monitoring her emails, I can't tell. 3 years have passed. Even though I live with my parents, my sister hasn't phoned or seen up since she moved out. She was a financial burden on our parents and went back to school twice. After that, we began to argue a lot and finally stopped communicating. My sister stayed at home for a few more years after I relocated to Los Angeles to follow my goals. She got married 3 years ago and hasn't phoned or visited her family since. It's absurd that when she got married, she didn't come to welcome us. We are unable to get in touch with her, despite our want to meet and welcome her in-laws. What's on her mind? As they say, no news is good news. She must be coping somehow if she doesn't return home. But as a parent, I believe she could at least give a call. Like Mom, Dad is upbeat and has a soft spot for his daughter. But since my sister isn't now a financial burden on our parents, I thought it's not my place to remark. I suppose that's all right. I hope that ultimately my parents will reestablish a positive family dynamic like they did in the past. However, I'm content as long as they're healthy. Such days lasted for a year. Now, Mom and Dad, let's go. Now, were we planning anything today? I want both of you to see something. I led my folks there, pushing them along. With magnificent residences lining the streets, it was a posh neighborhood in the heart of the city. My parents glanced around anxiously because it was their first time in such an area, but I halted in front of an opulent home. This house is amazing, isn't it? It seems good. How about this house? I own this house. Why don't we all live here? My parents were taken aback by my unexpected proposal, but I was sincere. 6 months prior, I had finally been able to buy this property and was ready to move. The home I bought was a lavish 7-room home. Although having such a huge house may not be required, I was glad to fulfill my parents' lifelong desire of owning a large home. Are you serious? It's like a dream. It's unbelievable that you purchased such a home. I wanted to bring you joy. Seeing your desire come true makes me happy too. My parents exchanged a startled but contented smile when I told them this. I am aware that supporting one's parents involves more than just spending money or buying them gifts. Nevertheless, I was overjoyed to realize their lifelong desire, and I really hope they have much more joyous days in their later years. 3 years have passed since we started living in this house together, and my investment business is still doing well. Tonight, I thought we'd go out for some delicious steak. The reservation time was approaching, and I was getting ready to leave the house when suddenly the doorbell rang. Wondering why the doorbell would ring at this hour, I checked the security camera. Isn't that Amber? It's me, your sister. Let me in. I hadn't told my sister about buying this house since we had been estranged for many years, so I was surprised when she suddenly showed up. But I decided to let her into the house for the meantime. It seemed our parents hadn't contacted her, so how did she find out about us? It's been a while. I was surprised because there was no contact. I couldn't tell you about moving because we couldn't contact you. How did you? I can't believe you all moved without consulting me. Even if you couldn't contact me, I'm family too. That's true, but I almost blamed my sister for her self-centered behavior and for leaving home on her own, but doing that would be a waste of time. My sister has a quick temper and can become violent when angry. I had no idea why she came here after all this time. Anyway, I should avoid causing any trouble. With that thought, I carefully asked my sister how she found out about this house without sounding too harsh. Who told you we moved? Since we went to the same high school, I know a lot of your friends, and I can easily hear about your situation. Really? Although we attended the same high school, I can't imagine she's still in touch with my friends. Besides, I barely keep in contact with my high school friends, and above all, I haven't told them about the move. I thought she knew I started a business and understood that it was doing well. Maybe she found out on her own and decided to visit. But if she says it's from friends, maybe it's better not to dig deeper right now. Anyway, it turned out that our family of 4 would be gathering after a long time. You used to tell me how much better it was to be independent, and now you're living off our parents. What are you talking about? Living in such a big house together, you must be contributing some money, right? Well, actually, I contribute money. Maybe she doesn't know the details. She seems to think our parents bought this house, but they couldn't possibly afford it. My sister went to a private university and even had her study abroad paid for. Does she realize how much money our parents have spent on her? It's astonishing that she can say such things without thinking. If she really believes that, it's incredibly naive. I bought this house with my own money. Stop joking. I heard you gave up your company, she scoffed. I didn't give it up. I transferred the business. I'm now earning through investment ventures. You say that, but you basically couldn't manage the company and let it go bankrupt, right? There's no use hiding it. I'm sure that's what happened, knowing you. Her condescending attitude hasn't changed despite the years. I sensed that our parents were happy about her unexpected return, but they were actually uncomfortable with her arrogant behavior and lack of prior communication. They didn't say it out loud, but their expressions stiffened and their smiles from earlier had vanished. It's a natural reaction, and thinking about why she would visit at this hour to have such a conversation sends shivers down my spine. Then the next thing my sister said shocked us all. I've decided to live here with my husband. Hope that's okay with you. What? Suddenly, does she think I would just accept this after her haughty attitude moments ago? What kind of nerve does she have? I'd appreciate it if she toned down the jokes. Even if there are spare rooms in this house, isn't this too presumptuous? You didn't even come to greet us when you got married, and now you drop this bombshell. I'm family too, right? And soon I'll have a child. You might not understand since you have no plans to marry, but showing our parents their grandchild is also a way of honoring them. You're having a baby? Our parents, who had been somber, perked up at the mention of a grandchild. When we go shopping at department stores, they often comment on how cute small children are. I haven't said anything because I'm single, but I know, deep down, they want grandchildren. Perhaps that's why, even though my sister has been unreasonable toward them, the instant they heard about the grandchild, all was forgiven. Are you really pregnant? How far along are you? Your stomach doesn't look that noticeable yet. I only found out about the pregnancy recently. That's why my body hasn't changed much yet. I'm planning to move soon to get support for the birth, so please help, my sister said abruptly before leaving. It's astounding how self-centered she can be. Despite her past behavior, it seems she doesn't care. Clearly, my parents' reactions have only encouraged her attitude further. I don't feel like complaining to them. I can't show them a grandchild as a single person, and it's natural for them to share happiness over her news. But living together in this house is something I definitely want to avoid. What should I do? What do you think about what she said earlier? We're happy about the baby. After living so selfishly, she's going to be a mother. Maybe she'll start to understand how we feel, my parents said. They didn't say anything about living with my sister, but they seemed genuinely happy about her pregnancy. That's natural for any parent. For them, the joy of having a grandchild probably outweighs any past grievances with her. I can't easily forgive her selfishness, and I think she should apologize first, but I want to prioritize my parents' feelings. What do you think about living together with her family? It's her first pregnancy, so I want to help if I can. But if you're against it, I think it's okay to refuse. I understood why they'd be frustrated by her attitude, and I deeply understood how they felt. I felt reassured by my parents' words. Maybe subconsciously I've been weighing myself against my sister. Despite all the ways I've tried to repay my parents, I was worried that they might prioritize her simply because she is pregnant. However, I was relieved to find that they prioritized my feelings above all. Thank you. Let's make it just for a limited time until she has the baby and settles down. Ideally, I wanted to set clear boundaries, but I decided to welcome my sister for my parents' sake. My parents conveyed this decision to my sister, and she and her husband moved in right away. I had never met her husband before, and they hadn't even come to greet me when they got married. They haven't said anything to me since they started living here. I wasn't particularly looking forward to this, and a week passed with me trying to ignore it. Aren't you going to live on your own? Why all of a sudden? I just bought this house. Can you clear out your study? We want to make it our bedroom. Who does she think she is? Why should I have to leave when I bought this house? There are 7 rooms in the house. 3 are used as my parents' bedroom and their hobby rooms. I have 2 rooms for myself, a bedroom and a study. The remaining 2 are currently used as storage for various items. I had given up my bedroom for my sister to use, but it seems her greed has grown. Why do you think you can say such selfish things? It's my house, you know. If I lose my study, I won't have any personal space. So what? That doesn't matter to me. You should stop relying on our parents and live on your own. It's not good to be so dependent on your parents after you're 30. I was upset, not only with my sister, but also with her husband for saying such things. It seems they don't understand that this house is in my name. They must think that I, who supposedly ran my company into the ground, couldn't possibly afford such a luxurious house. My sister and her husband have been here a while now, and we haven't had much time to talk because I've been busy with investments. I thought there was no need to clarify, but I've reached my limit with my sister's attitude. I think I've said this before, but I bought this house, so please stop making unreasonable demands. That's a lie, obviously. Even I can tell that you must have made our parents buy it, she said, returning to her room with her husband. They seem to have no awareness that they are living in someone else's house, but thinking about it more won't improve the situation. I'm also busy with meetings for new investment opportunities, and I don't have time to deal with my sister and her husband. I quickly got ready to go out and headed to the cafe where I had arranged to meet. After about 2 hours of meeting, I returned home. When I arrived and was about to step inside, I saw something unbelievable. What is this? Don't make such a loud noise at this hour. My belongings were thrown out in the yard, and there was even a tent set up. What are you trying to do? Incredibly, all the important documents and items from my study had been thrown out into the yard, and they had even set up a tent. This must mean they want me to leave the house, but it's utterly ridiculous. Unfortunately, my parents were also out, and no one was there to stop my sister and her husband. However, I've had enough of being disrespected like this. I don't know what you're trying to do, but enough is enough. I told you we're making your study our bedroom. You're old enough. You should move out and be independent. People who always rely on their parents should move out and become independent, they said, laughing. I was about to explode with anger, but I knew that if I lashed out, I would be the bad guy. I desperately controlled my rising anger and silently began picking up my belongings from the yard. By the way, your parents are on a spa trip. They won't be back until the day after tomorrow. Enjoy your time in the tent. Ignoring their words, I silently gathered my things and left the house. I went to a hotel and checked in. When I looked at my phone, I saw missed calls from my parents. It seems they were given travel vouchers by my sister and her husband. This was all my sister and her husband's plan. They wanted to kick me out of the house while my parents were away. I can no longer tolerate this. After all their condescending behavior, I cannot forgive them. I'm determined to make them realize their rudeness. With that resolve, I called my parents. Sorry for calling so late. Can we talk for a bit? We're sorry for contacting you late, too. The tickets were for today, so we hurried out without much time, my parents said, sounding happy about their Sutton spa trip. But I had no room to consider their feelings. I'm sorry to bother you during your trip, but can you look at the photos I'm about to send? Just a moment. What are these photos? They look like our yard. Who would do such a thing? After you left, they threw all the stuff from my study into the yard. I told them everything about what had just happened. My parents were shocked and speechless for a moment. For them, it must seem like she's become part of the family again. They remember the things my sister did in the past, but the fact that she's having a baby and managed to send them on a spa trip overshadows those memories. Just like mistaking a delinquent youth helping an elderly person as genuinely good, people with generally negative impressions can dramatically change their image with just a little good behavior. However, we must accept reality as it is. I've reached my limit. I thought I could endure it until she gives birth, but I can't anymore. For now, we'll talk to her. Where are you staying, Amber? I've decided to stay at a nearby hotel. Okay, rest well today. We'll be in touch. It wasn't clear whether my parents were on my side or my sister's, but for now, I decided to leave the persuasion to them. Depending on their actions, I would think about my future steps. With these thoughts, I spent about 3 days at the hotel. Then, a month passed. I'm back. What's going on? Why suddenly? My sudden return seemed to surprise them, but that was a natural reaction. A month had passed since my sister threw my belongings out, and I had been staying at a hotel. Apparently, my sister and her husband had assumed I had completely left, but there was no way I would leave my house without saying anything. I came back specifically to have an important discussion. I'm planning to sell the house, so pack your things and leave immediately. Are you joking? That's harsh. Has living outside for a month made you lose your mind? My sister and her husband continued to belittle me until the end, but their naive comments could only last for so long. They smiled, unaware of what awaited them in the next few minutes as I continued sharply. As proof, I brought the deed to the house. Now you see that this house I bought isn't a lie, right? While saying this, I presented them with the land, title, and other documents. They looked at each other with surprised faces, but that wasn't all. Did they think I just wasted time this past month without taking any action? If so, they were underestimating me too much. I'll say it again. I plan to sell this house, so please pack your things and leave soon. Coming back suddenly and talking about selling the house is unreasonable. You just bought it, right? Why sell it now? I didn't plan to sell it, but since you two keep making selfish demands, I thought maybe if I put it up for sale, you would leave. Who's being selfish? It's impossible to just leave immediately. They seemed very panicked once they realized I was serious, but it was too late to be flustered. They should deeply regret their previous actions. They became silent after my words. As I was about to return to my hotel, my parents came back. Suddenly, my sister ran to my mother, acting as if she had been bullied. Mom, listen. Amber suddenly came home and said she's selling the house and that we have to leave. Do something. Yes, it seems she's gone crazy from living outside. Don't you think, Father? We were planning to leave by next week anyway. Naturally, I had already discussed this with my parents and had their agreement, so they weren't surprised at all. Instead, they looked at my sister and her husband with a cold gaze. They must have thought they could convince my parents to side with them, but it was futile. You knew about this. Amber told us the day she gave us the spa trip. We've heard everything about what you two did. Amber is as important to us as you are, and you've gone too far this time. When we returned from the trip and heard about Amber, we were appalled by all the lies. We wanted you to leave immediately, but Amber asked us to wait, so we kept quiet and endured. Hearing my parents' words, my sister and her husband seemed to realize they were in a difficult position and became awkward. Still, there was no sign of an apology from them. How twisted can their personalities be? It's truly beyond saving. Where can we live after leaving the house? She's pregnant, and it's a tough time ahead. Instead of worrying about your future, why not apologize for your past actions? They showed no remorse for their actions and expected concern for their future. If they understood the situation, the first thing they should do is apologize. Not understanding even that, it's hard to believe this is my sister. I briefly wondered if all the good traits from our parents had passed to me and none to her, but then I was sure of it. In the end, they never apologized to me. You're the ones who should be apologizing. Telling us to pack up and leave when I'm about to give birth is crazy. You're correct. You are the self-centered one. You still don't get it. In a place that isn't even yours, why are you behaving so arrogantly? Before criticizing, why don't you simply leave if you don't like it? In any case, you could never afford to live in a home this opulent. Here, who is truly being pampered? I was aware that they would resign. I knew everything since my parents had kept me updated on my sister's and her husband's circumstances ever since that occurred. My sister had apparently been a housewife since marriage, but she had no intention of taking us into consideration when she became pregnant and planned to stay here forever. Her spouse had also resigned from his position. Maybe they believed that by owning such an opulent home, they would be able to relax and not worry about money. I'll only allow you to be here for a month. By then, find a spot and leave. I'll treat you the same way I treated you if you betray this pledge. After saying such things to them, I departed and went back to the motel. After that, it appears that my parents tried everything they could, and my sister and her husband were able to find an apartment with a considerably lower key money and deposit within a month. But because they didn't have a job, the flat they could rent had shared bathrooms and toilets, and it was outdated. I no longer cared about the couple's daily arguments about who was to blame for their current situation. Whether or not my sister was pregnant, even my parents had become impatient with her and had no plans to help her. It is my hope that this experience will educate my sister that she and her husband must provide for their family on their own. Later, I made the decision to rent out the house rather than sell it. Since it had just been purchased, I wasn't ready to sell it, but I informed my sister and her husband that it had been sold. When I had purchased the house, I had hoped it would prove to be a wise investment. As a result, finding a renter was simple, and I'm currently making money from it. It's a comfort to be able to earn more money while separating from my sister and her husband. I currently reside in a downtown tower with my folks. My parents no longer hold my sister and her husband to any standards following this event. We probably won't be doing business with them again. I plan to keep living my life, giving back to my parents for everything they have done, and making sure I never act irrationally as my sister did. She is unlikely to have a bright future. We have no plans to assist my sister and her husband in the future, no matter what challenges they face. Since they have made their decision, it is only fitting that they bear the repercussions. I intend to keep living a happy life and will always be appreciative to my parents.